All right, welcome to the Patient Pod. This is episode number 20. Today we're going over IBS, also known as Irritable Bowel Syndrome. The three things that we're going to cover today is what is IBS? Number two, what are the common symptoms of IBS? And make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to go over the top three things that you can do today in order to take that stress off of your gut. All right, so Dr. Agan's been doing some research. He's always digging into stuff. So with today's, I shouldn't say that.
No, I like it.
He's always digging into things. So with
Always.
today's topic, he was researching IBS on the good old PubMed, where all these scholarly articles are. Tell us what you found.
This is a very, very important topic that we're talking about today. This is a condition that has been growing steadily throughout the last few years, especially with all the emotional stress, with a freaking pandemic and all the other madness going around. And it's considered an important public health problem because there's no true understanding of what's causing it because they can't find out a true solution to fix it. But there is 100% correlation. You ask any physician that deals with IBS, there is a emotional stress component to this syndrome, so to speak. So what we got to understand is how the brain and gut do connect, and what we eat affects our emotional state as well, and how our immune system is so intertwined and so complex that we can't even understand. But we're going to go over these later on these certain little tools that you can address to fix this condition.
Well, and I think the biggest thing here is with IBS is that you talked about it's a psychosomatic. So the way that your intestines work with your brain. That's the biggest takeaway with IBS. And I think up until now, science has done really well with targeting specific things that are going on. But when it comes to the way that our brain is functioning with the rest of our body, I think we're still lagging behind a little bit, but we're also getting better at that.
And there has to be a correlation to what's going on in the world right now. If you really look at a lot of, mortality rates and health problems that we have, sugar and diabetes is usually right up there at number one, causing a lot of these issues. So I think the reason we're seeing a lot more of this syndrome is because diets are not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That is a direct correlation. How many times have you ate something that's not very good for you, and then 20 minutes later, you kind of feel a little down? There is a direct correlation. They call it the brain-gut axis. And we could go into details, but it's so complex, it's almost confusing. But what we have to understand is our anxious anxiety state that the majority of the population are in is directly affected to the motility or how your food is digested. In your guts, if you're not in that rest and digest state and you're not calm, that food can't be processed, it can't be digested. And then that's why symptoms of constipation or diarrhea are the two most common things you see with IBS, along with chronic abdominal pain. So we got to clean out those guts, but the gut-brain connection, you can't just fix one. That's why there's an emotional component. A psychologist will tell you this as well. The body can't tell the difference. So balancing out the emotional stress and cleaning up the diet are the two most effective ways to naturally heal this syndrome.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're getting with today's times. That's different than before. I believe that you go to a doctor and you say, "Well, I have diarrhea or I have constipation."
Mm-hmm.
They're looking straight at the guts and going, "Okay, well, how can we make that better?" But really, you got to look at both parts now. You got to look at that mental frame because if you don't fix, like you just said, both of them, you're leaving out part of the equation, and you're just not going to solve it the way that you want to.
Well, and you see it more often in females because they're emotionally conditioned different than males. They're raising kids. You're seeing divorce rates. You're seeing single moms out there more now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not that, that dynamic balance of a relationship to help raise children and support that. So that emotional stress component is huge. And then you're also seeing is that same age range, a very common age range for gallbladder removals. So, the first thing is they come in with chronic abdominal pain, they're going to check the gallbladder. As soon as they rule out that connection with the liver and make sure everything's good there, they're going to diagnose you with IBS. And I think the physicians are starting to understand now that this is more of an emotional stress component, that medicine and prescriptions aren't going to fix this problem.
Yeah. And we want to make sure, and we're not going to go into IBD, but inflammatory bowel disease.
Hmm.
We just want, and we might go into it in a different episode, but we want to make sure that everybody knows the distinction that these things are different. Inflammatory IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, is more of an immuno response, whereas IBS, I'm glad I got all those
There you
things right.
go.
IBS is more of a, like we're talking about right now, a more gut brain issue, as
Mhm.
opposed to something with your immune response within you.
Exactly. And that's why those IBS and IBD are related, because the symptoms are very similar.
Yeah.
You know, you go into a GI doctor and you tell them your symptoms, they're going to want to differentiate whether it's IBD, which is more of a genetic thing
Hmm.
with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, versus IBS, which is definitely more emotionally stress related along with diet.
Yeah, and with IBD, you're going to see things like people have joint pain, people have inflammation all over the place.
Hmm.
It's more, I mean, it's not like um, uh, psoriatic arthritis or RA, but it's same type of inflammatory issue. Whereas, if you were to do studies on that, you're going to get several markers within the body that's going to say, hey, this person has IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. But with the IBS, like Dr. Aiken was talking about, you rule out everything and you still don't really have definitive
Hmm.
um, diagnosis with imagery, because the image, I mean, you're really not going to have a ton. And so, what is it? It's IBS. And the reason why we're a little bit behind on this deal is because we haven't quite figured out how to correlate the brain to everything else. And I can tell a story. I was dealing with some emotional things going on in my life, and I started taking something to help me out with I was having depression issues. And so I started taking something to help me out with that. Well, that medication helped me out with my depression, but it actually spiked my anxiety. And I'm telling you what, not to TMI, but the bowel movements were way too much and way too often. And when I finally addressed that, then everything started to get better. And that shows you how much that is linked. So, yes, helping out with my depression was great, but that same medication increased my anxiety. And I went to the doctor and I was like, hey, I'm having these issues. And she was like, oh, well, that's definitely, it's definitely, that, because of the way our gut and brain are so intertwined.
They're connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's very true. And the truth about it is, as well as some of that emotional stress, especially, so you have a 32-year-old female that's diagnosed with IBS, and is working on things to try to get that better. The truth is, it could have been something at 6 years old, emotionally damaging,
Yep.
that caused an issue that is literally festered over the years, that affected her intestines. And you know, again and again, I'm always going to go over this in the body's ability to survive and what it's telling us. Our body communicates to us better than we can even understand.
Yep.
It's how we listen to it, and how we work through those changes. And I can relate too. Growing up as a kid, I dealt with, now looking back, was IBS, chronic stomach pain, anxiousness, diarrhea, even as a little kid getting ready to go to school. But what I found out was that was my anxious anxiety coming out, because going to school was a competition for me. I had to make it kind of a competition, playing ball games even through high school. And you guys that played with me will tell you I had some Pepto in my bag. Like,
You had Pepto that early?
oh, 100%.
Oh, man.
Before every game. I mean, Egan's got that Pepto. But another thing, that the two things that helped me, and this goes with emotional stress and what we put into our bodies. When I was about 15 years old, I went to the gym, and that was really when I was kind of called out. And we'll go into that story down the road, but that made me repetitively go into the gym. I was never going to leave after that moment. I noticed over time, when I would work out before school, how my anxiousness to go to school was gone. And so getting up and moving and exercising, kind of fighting your demons, so to speak, in the morning, you're ready to take on the rest of the day.
Yep.
And then going back to baseball, I mean, like I said, in high school, I remember there was one time I was on deck, and all of a sudden it hit my guts. And it
Uh-oh.
was one of those, you got to go. Get up to the plate. First pitch, I just, no matter what I was swinging, hit a double, and I'm on second base, and I'm yelling, pinch runner
Somebody come get me.
in front of the whole freaking crowd. I went from second base to the bathroom, and I was in there for a while. Hell, I think I was even in the hole by the time
By
it
the time
was
you
ready
got
to go
back.
back up. But again, going back to that, I remember my pregame diet was a Vault energy drink. And if you can remember that one, that's a
I'm trying to think, man.
2006. I don't even know. Coca-Cola might have been it. Vault energy drink
Okay, I do remember that. Yeah.
and a Slim Jim was my pregame.
Oh,
So no wonder, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, so getting up and moving, exercising, it's not only important for your body, but it's so important for your mind as well. And then limiting sugar. Sugar is the one that's going to fester in there
Yep.
and basically dictate your emotional stress as well.
Yeah, and there's no fluke, and this is something that everybody can relate to. There's no fluke that you get the extra shits when you have something stressful going on.
Oh,
Like
anxious guts,
anxious.
yeah.
There's no
Bubble guts.
there's no fluke there. So, and Dr. Agan, we're gonna kind of more analyze these even further. So, the three things that you can do that can help you out. So, you go with the first one. Elaborate a little bit more about what you did with working out and stuff like that.
I think the most important thing to do is to get up an hour early and move. It doesn't have to be lifting weights. That's what's always helped me. I love lifting weights. But getting up, going for a run, doing some yoga. Yoga is fantastic because it opens up all those energy chakras and you're stretching out a lot of muscles that aren't being stretched. But just movement, and then or maybe some mindfulness. Read your Bible for a little bit. Do some meditations, stuff like that to kind of clear your head. But I think movement's the best medicine to start the day.
Yeah, because movement not only helps your physical, your body, but also your brain as well. I mean, it's proven that it helps both things. So that's number one. Number two, make sure you're eating the best you can. And especially when it comes to high stressful times in your life. So like for me, I was getting married. That's a high stress time. And I was also starting a business here with Dr. Agan at the same time, all in 3 months. High stress time. So, especially at that time, I need to watch what I'm doing. I need to watch what I'm eating, what I'm consuming. Am I drinking too much? All those different things go into how you feel at the end of the day. So, number one, work out, get moving. Number two, eat what you should when you should. And you should always try to eat the best you can all the time. But we know, hey, we gonna eat some pizza too. And that's why I wanted to outline, when you know you're having stressful times, just like I just went to my brother's wedding and I was really nervous to stand up there and do all those different things. I tried to eat a little bit better. I tried to do a little bit better in preparation to that point because I knew that would help calm down my nerves.
No doubt. Yeah. And limiting the sugar, because sugar is like throwing kerosene on the fire to anything that's already inflamed. And another thing with IBS is there's an area in your intestines that's chronically inflamed. So adding more foods that cause inflammation are going to make it worse. And then that connection to the area of your brain that's kind of part of your limbic system, your emotional component. So there is going to be a correlation to that. So not only are you saving yourself trips to the bathroom in front of everybody at the wedding, but you're
Or at the ball
emotionally
game.
staying in check. Oh yeah.
At the ball game, coming off second base.
Yep.
Dude, everybody's like,
They're still talking about that.
what's so Brad doing out there? And number three, go see a therapist. Go see somebody. Confide in somebody. And a therapist is the best thing to go do. But also talking to loved ones as well. Some loved ones are friends who don't judge too much. Let's say it like that. If it's somebody that's someone good to have a good release with, those things will help. But ultimately, if you're having, chronic IBS, you're going to need to seek out some professional help. That way you can get that brain better as well. Because if you exercise, that's going to help out with the brain. If you eat better, that's going to help out with the guts. But if you don't address the mental component, you're not going to get to where you need with it.
And along with that mental component, it's not only, seeking out some professional help, but getting out in nature. That's something that I've found is last weekend, I mean, it's December here in the Midwest, but stopped by Bass Pro Shops. I got that new aquarium.
Yep.
Going off to that. So looking at creatures and how beautifully made they are. And you look at certain fish and their colors, and you realize, or you look out in nature at amazing things, and you realize how insignificant we really are.
Yeah.
I hate being that way, but we got to take our own personal crap out of it and really just take a step back and appreciate certain things, because what that does emotionally is it makes us realize that those certain problems aren't as big. because we're making them bigger than they need to be. But really just appreciating other things. They're just nature's the best medicine, man.
So you're saying that those fish look better in person than they do on your phone when you're looking at them?
Well, I mean, once I took pictures with them, they turned out all right.
Well,
Okay, so
what I was saying was it's better to get out and go do something and see it firsthand than just watch things on your phone all the time.
Yeah, even looking at a fish tank, these fish are out of the ocean, they were endangered or whatever that is, and so I kind of go in there feeling bad for them, but then you can really appreciate them. Look how close and beautifully made they are. Look at those colors. Dude, that was freaking created, man. And so as a human being, you're just like, wow, we were really small.
Yeah.
We're really small.
That's mindfulness, buddy.
Yeah, and that's a biggest part of this whole thing. So doing activities like that stimulate the brain to kind of ease out that emotional stress, and nature's everything.
I like it. I
Boom.
like this topic. That was good.
Yeah, man.
That was good. All right. So this was episode 20, as we always do. I don't know what we're going to do once we get into the hundreds. I guess we'll just start back over at 1, 2, 3 and go again.
Mm-hmm.
But it is episode number 20. So our favorite ball player that was number 20, Dr. Agan will go first.
Barry Sanders.
He got a new documentary out.
And I did watch a little bit of that. And one thing I appreciate about him is, you know what? He put in his time, great football player. He didn't have to be the greatest running back of all time. He knew what he was, and he wasn't in there for the hype, and he just stepped away when he felt was necessary to live the rest of his life. So mad respect for Barry Sanders, man.
I like it.
Dude could run.
Yeah, he could run. All right. My number 20 is Ray Allen.
I thought you were going to say Ray Finkel.
No, not Ray Finkel. Ray Allen. I really liked Ray Allen. Ray Allen, I really like. So when I'm watching basketball, everybody's cool out there. They're all flying around, But I like those guys. They're a little bit smaller. They get over in that corner and hit that 3 ball, dude. Just quick pop.
Did you like him with the Bucks or the Celtics?
I watched him with the Celtics. The Bucks was probably a little bit before I was watching tons of NBA. Yeah. But Ray, those were good years, though. Was that who else was on that team? There was some Pierce, and then Garnett. Yep. Big Baby Shaq. Remember him? And the
there was a couple years them and the Lakers had some battles, man.
They did. Those were good times. Absolutely. All right, guys. So as always, subscribe to the channel. Go check us out on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't left us a review yet, leave it for us. It just helps us spread our word out there. So this episode's after Christmas. So I hope everybody had a great Christmas.
Finish the year strong.
Finish it strong. 4th quarter's almost over. We're about to hit the 1st quarter again.
Rest up.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.